everyone, and welcome to a new sewing tutorial with Burda. Today, we'll be sewing the men's jacket number 130 from the December 2023 issue of Burda Style. We'll be using a wool fabric and a handcrafted quilted lining to sew this jacket. You will also need iron-on interfacing, 7 buttons, matching thread, and your standard sewing tools. Today, we're using the Yuki HZL UX8 sewing machine, which is perfect for your creative projects. It's easy to operate via the touchscreen or thumb wheel. You can also easily choose from various decorative or assembly stitches. And the Yuki Special Buttonhole Presser Foot determines the correct button size by inserting it into the buttonhole clamping plate. For this jacket, we are using a size 80 universal needle from Schmetz. Once you've determined your size, you can cut out pieces 1 to 10, as well as pieces 14 and 15, and add all the notches required to sew the model. Next, cut the fabric. The magazine's cutting layout shows you how to fold the outer fabric and lining and where to place the pattern pieces. Now, pin the pattern pieces to the fabric according to the cutting layout, mark the seam and hem notches indicated in the magazine, then cut along the chalk lines. And don't forget to cut the interfacing for pieces 2, 6, and 9 before ironing it onto the wrong side of the fabric. Before you remove the pieces, mark the seam and hemlines on the fabric. To do this, you can use a tracing wheel and Burda carbon paper. You can find more detailed instructions for this step in the paper packaging. And remember to transfer the pattern notches onto the fabric too. You can now remove the pieces from the fabric and start sewing. For fabrics like this one, it's best to use a size 80 universal needle. You can transfer the notches with the larger stitch setting on the right side of the fabric. Now, let's start with the pocket. Choose an overlock stitch and neaten all sides of the pocket. Fold the trim on the fold line outward with the right side inward. Sew the sides on top of each other. Turn the trim inward. Press the edges and fold the bottom and side seam allowances inward. Sew the trim along the marked line. Pin the pocket to the connecting lines on the left front and sew it in place. Pin the right button band on top of the right front and pin it in place. Stitch along the front edge and press the seams. Now, fold the back pleats in the direction of the arrow, pin them to the allowances, and pin the right collar flap to the back, then sew the connecting seam. Press the allowances toward the flap. Now, place the front pieces on the back, right sides together, pin and sew the side and front seams. Press the allowances flat. Then fold the sleeves in half lengthwise, right sides together. Pin and sew the sleeve seams, then press the allowances flat. Now insert the sleeves. Turn the sleeves right side out and pin them to the armholes right sides together. Make sure that the sleeve seams match up and that the side seams match up. The lines 7 from the sleeves and front should also cross, and the sleeve line should match up with the shoulder notch at the collar. Then, sew the sleeves in place. Press the allowances toward the sleeve. Now it's time to work on the hood. First, place the hood pieces right sides together, pin, and sew the center seam. Trim the seam allowances so that they are 1 centimeter thick and press them flat. Then pin and sew the center seam of the hood facing and press the allowances. Pin the facing right sides together on the hood and sew along the front edge. Then, sew the facing on the allowances. Turn the facing inside out and press the edge. Now, place the hood right sides together on the neckline. Here, the hood's lines should cross with the shoulder notches on the collar. Sew along the neckline seam lines. Trim and clip the allowances up to the seam and press them flat. Continue with the lining. Sew the back lining as indicated for the inverted pleat. Press the pleat to one side. The remaining lining seams are sewn and pressed like that of the outer fabric. Place the lining on the jacket right sides together, pin the front edge of the lining to the inner button band, and continue onto the hood facing. Sew the lining along the seam line, starting about 10 centimeters above the hem line. Press the allowances into the lining, turn the jacket inside out, and press the facing along the fold line. Pin the neck seams one on top of the other, and sew the outside into the groove to secure the lining in the jacket. Place the lined sleeves into the sleeves and stitch along the bottom of the sleeve on both sides of the notch line. You can now cut the sleeve notches along the notch line. Spread the notch apart to get a straight edge and sew it as tightly as possible on one side of the finishing strip. Press the finishing strip over the seam in the notch, fold it inward, and pin it in place over the seam. Sew the finishing strip in a straight line from the outside, holding on to the folded allowance as you do so. At the upper end of the notch, sew the finishing strip like you would a dart. Place the finishing strip at the front of the notch and pin it in place. Now fold the pleat at the bottom edge of the sleeve in the direction of the arrow and pin it to the allowances. Pin the cuff right sides together onto the bottom edge of the sleeve with the cuff allowances overlapping the notch. Sew the cuff in place. Press the allowances of the seam and the other long edge of the cuff into the cuff. Fold the cuff in half lengthwise with the right side inward and sew the short sides together, one on top of the other. Turn the cuff over and press the edges. Pin the folded edge over the seam into the notch. Now sew the cuff all the way around from the outside to secure the inside seam. Lay the band flat, fold the hem allowance inward, and pin it in place. Sew the hem loosely by hand. Replace the inner band and sew it to the hem allowance. Then sew the folded lining onto the hem allowance as you fold the extra length toward the bottom. Now sew the remaining edge of the lining onto the band. Sew the band from the outside into the groove and continue with the hood at the same distance. Now, all that's left are the buttons and buttonholes. Use a buttonhole presser foot for your sewing machine and set a buttonhole stitch. Sew a buttonhole at each front end of the cuff as you can see here. Then, sew the corresponding button at the rear end. Sew the buttonholes on the left sleeve as shown on the left. Now, sew the corresponding buttons onto the right button band. And that's it! Your new jacket is ready! It is perfect for both fall and winter. And thanks to its relaxed fit, the jacket can be paired with just about anything and worn for any occasion. Burda would like to thank its partners Yuki and Schmetz. We hope you enjoyed sewing this pattern, and we look forward to seeing you for our next Burda video.